Has anyone ever noticed the difference between an intro and a eulogy? No, I got to shorten that one up. Let's see if the technology works. Hey, we got game, I think. There we go. Hey, good evening. Come on, I saw the coffee being served. You're getting your sugar now. Good evening. This is going to be a little different. You're going to have to sing for your supper in that I'm going to ask you questions as part of my presentation tonight. First off, I am honored to be here with all of you because there's a number of things going on. I want to first acknowledge the Pioneer Institute for putting aging on the agenda. They, along with the governor, putting aging not just as an issue, but as an opportunity for all of us in the Commonwealth and beyond to live longer better. Think about the ultimate power of government is not what it does, but what it says is important. And by putting aging on the agenda, this gives us the opportunity to do better and different for all of us. So I want to have a little bit of fun with you, hopefully a little bit of infotainment along the way. But I also want to convince you that technology in part is the answer, but the context of aging has fundamentally changed. Yes, there are more older people. Yes, we are living longer, but we are living very differently. We are not our parents' old age. We are not our grandparents' old age. So as a result, we cannot use the tools that we developed for yesterday's definition of aging and just basically say, now that there are more older people, we need more of the same. No, in fact, we need to rethink living longer, living better. I love this cover slide because it shows that one of my students can ruin a perfectly good piece of art for $75. But I also don't like to be the only guy in the room with this haircut. But I see Tom Grape and Steve Ake and a few others go to the same barbershop that I do. So let me go through it. Here's your first question in class participation is 10% of your grades tonight. What are the two things we like to say we can depend upon in society? All right, the cheap seats over here are sleeping. Yes, death and taxes, absolutely. Death and taxes, yes. Apparently, death, not so much. I want you to imagine this, and you can feel their pain. The funeral industry, if you will, is reporting lower sales because if you can imagine this, we are not dying at the rate we once did. So as a result, we now have far more older adults, and we'll come up with a reason as to why our state, our country, and countries around the world are aging as well. But it's not just about more older adults. It is not just about aging. Let me tell you a story that inspired me to start the AgeLab many years ago. A woman named Sarah Noss from Pennsylvania. And it's amazing. She lived to 119 years old. And imagine this. On her 115th birthday, a journalist had, and the only way to put it, the chutzpah, to ask her, why do you enjoy living so long? And she came back with an answer that I enjoy living this long, I enjoy my longevity, because I have my health and I can do things. Ladies and gentlemen, aging is not just about reminding you to take your meds. It is not taking you to the doctor. It is not going to the grocery store. It is about having whatever level of health you can optimize to do those little things, those little moments. Not the discussion of what meaning is about in life, but the little things that make you smile, whether it's an ice cream cone, reading the newspaper, or whatever it is. So Sarah Noss has given us our vision, our frontier, which is to live longer, better, and to somehow have access to those little things. So I've got you great news. We are living longer because the things that once killed us in many cases have now become chronic conditions. Think about the C word, cancer. At one point that was a death sentence no matter what. Today in some cases that is a chronic condition. Other diseases are now being managed. In fact, chronic disease is on the rise, but luckily much of that is being managed well. Perhaps a little bit expensively, but well. So here's the great news. In fact, let me ask, and please, all the geriatricians and gerontologists, just be quiet. What was life expectancy about 1900? Any guesses? 64. That would be a nice good number. No, I'm going to give you a whole new definition of midlife crisis. 47 years old in the United States. That was life expectancy. Today, life expectancy, if you look at the actuarial tables, which by the way are wrong, they'll say late 70s. But you know, it hurts as a Red Sox fan to quote a Yankee. But as Yogi Berra said, you can see a lot by looking. The fastest growing part of the population is 85 plus. So what we are now looking at is a lifespan that's getting closer and closer to 100. And in fact, if you look at the data today, children born in 2007, and there's even data from 1999, at least half of them in the industrialized world are going to be living to 104 to 107 years old. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to change our discussion from aging. It is not incorrect as we have framed it tonight. It is, however, woefully incomplete. We need to redefine this as an issue of longevity, that we are living longer, we hope to live better. And in fact, in some cases, there's a child out there, some scientists are saying, that is already alive today that will live 142 years. This is perhaps not the new normal, but the trajectory is going in that direction. But there's something else going on. This is not the same old age we once had. There is a very large population that needs help, needs housing, needs social security and financial security. But also, this is the population that makes up the largest single economic buyer block in the world. Look at this. If you look at the entire United States GDP, $16 trillion. China, $9 trillion. The 60 plus is the new longevity economy. These are the folks that will be changing their demands of what they want in the future. And if we're going to live longer, I would suggest we definitely want to live better. We certainly don't want to carry this wellness thing too far along. So let me give you some numbers now that just give you an idea. It's not just about us and the Commonwealth aging. In fact, the United States is the only industrialized country that is still young and still growing. I want you to think about Germany. You know, you got to love the Germans. They are great innovators. When they see an issue, they create a solution. In their case, they are aging dramatically. And by the way, they're not just aging, their population is shrinking. One of our strongest economic partners, defense partners, whatever you want to call them, is not just shrinking, but in many cases going away. But when they're innovating, they came up with a great idea. They're creating anti-aging beer, so at least they'll enjoy their old age and a shrinking population. This is the one slide that will burn into your brain the rest of the evening. Now, I could give you the geek speak about Japan, where there's 125 million or so people, and roughly 35% of them are over age 60. How about this? How about if I tell you there's roughly 125 million people, but they are now selling more adult diapers than they are child diapers in that country. And this is one of the commercials. But finally, let's bring it home. Let's talk about us, if you will. Now, in the words of the great philosopher Jimmy Buffett, we are the people your parents warned you about. So as we talk about the boomers, by the way, let's do a little test here. How many folks are born between 46 and 64? Raise your hands. Okay, I want you to keep them up. The younger people would wish we'd just shut up, and the older people would wish we'd just shut up and go away. But we are the largest and loudest generation. But I want you to think about the image I just showed you. Are you going to be as polite as your parents? Are you going to sit and hope and sit in your chair and hope they come and visit? Are you going to wait for the transit vehicle to pick you up because, well, you know, you really wanted to go out for an ice cream cone, but I'll go to the grocery store and the doctor's office? Can you imagine the new Maslow's Pyramid? Probably has Wi-Fi at the bottom of it now for all of us, if you think about it. So one of the things I want you to think about is that it's not about our numbers. There is a new political imperative, economic imperative, and social imperative to live longer, better. We believe there is a pill, a product, or a policy that while we will not get out of this life alive, we will get out somehow a little bit better. That gap between what our parents expected and what we demand, royal we, is the innovation gap for new products, services, public policies. And here's the big thing, creative thinking. One of the things we haven't really thought about is you get to roughly 67 years old and you run out of narrative. There are no more rituals for you, maybe an occasional wedding, maybe a few things like that, but there are not many Hallmark cards for you. There are not many things at Crate and Barrel to say your downsizing party is this and you should order these glasses. There are no lifestyles that we have created for the following thing. I want you to imagine this. Do you know that from 0 to roughly college graduation is 8,000 days? From college graduation to what most of us would say is midlife crisis, 8,000 days. I bet you're catching on. From midlife crisis to retirement, 8,000 days, and guess what? If you're living close to 85 years old, the time you retire to the time of the end, guess what? See, even this side of the room got that. 8,000 days. Absolutely. one of the things I want you to think about, we have yet to invent 1/3 of adult life. And if we're not careful, we're going to define old age as, wow, we just need to do what we did for our parents, but a little bit better. No, the opportunities to envision something new, different, and better. So let's go through it. Education. How many of you really believe that if you're going to live to 100 years, that your education from 0 to 21 or 0 to 20-something years old is going to last you a lifetime? That's just downright funny. The pace of technology, the pace of knowledge is doubling roughly every 18 months. And if you're in medicine, it's every 9 months. So basically, the more educated you are, the dumber you are at a younger age because it's moving faster and faster for you. So we're going to have to start thinking not about, gee, what is your housing issue? Absolutely. You're going to have to start thinking about, gee, do I have a 529 plan not for my kids' college education, but what am I going to do for midlife sabbatical? Are educational institutions like MIT, UMass, any other institution going to be able to innovate fast enough to enable us to live longer for 100 years and also to make the business case to stay in the workplace for what we can do and what we know? In Singapore, they've already started education programs for the 50, 60, and 70 plus. Here's one for you. Even the Chinese government is now doing it. And for many schools, including those like Boston University and like, among the fastest growing number of students are those over age 50. Not going back to school to take the class that their parents wouldn't pay for, but to go back to school to be entrepreneurs, to get a degree, to change careers and the like. Imagine this, going back to school to start a whole new company at age 72. One of the things we're finding is that, when we think about entrepreneurship and education, we have this vision of some kid with a great software idea. They move to Silicon Valley and they become a gazillionaire. It's funny, if you look at the Coughlin Center for Entrepreneurship, who's on the top 3 list? By the way, guys, this gets bad for all the men in the room. It's women over age 50. We have to rethink what entrepreneurship and who is doing it overall. Indeed, the future may be gray, but it is distinctly female. And there is no end to school. Georgia Tech is a great educational institution. Imagine this, a master's degree in computer science, $7,000 entirely online. The new normal is you're never done with school as long as you want to stay active and engaged. The challenge here is not the technology, it is not the curriculum. It is write a new narrative where this becomes part of the new normal and expectation, and it is sanctioned as something that we want to do and can do. Let's talk about the future of work. Work is, we're all worried about the robots putting us out of a job, but if you thought about aging is actually an amazing economic opportunity. There are new professions, new technologies and things going on out there. So yes, from artificial intelligence to Zumba, but think of the things that are going on already today. Some of these are made up, some of them are coming already out there. Aging in place designer and contractor, or an aging in place certified construction consultant. Downsizing consultants. Yes, telemedicine has now become, finally after 50 years, increasingly the new normal. These are the new professions, these are the new jobs that are being powered by both the needs and the demands and the wants of an aging society. And according to AARP, 40% of us believe that we're going to work until we drop. By the way, 30% of us believe that we're going to work at least till 70. Now, what's the number one reason why we want to continue working? Guesses? First one's obvious. My friends at Fidelity, you don't have to answer. Money. First one's money, okay? The second one is M, meaning. So I'm going to ask the men in the room, and this is partly why it's going to go downhill for us in a moment here. What's the second question you ask another man after you know his name? What do you do? Exactly. Well, the trouble is what do you do after about a year? You start looking at your shoes, you think about your golf score, and you turn to your wife and go, what do we do? And in a few moments you'll find out that she says, I don't know what you do, but I'm no longer doing it with you. By the way, one of the other reasons why people will continue working at old age is not money, meaning, and someone did shout out correctly, social connection, because think about it, you spend far more time with people in the workplace or volunteer place than you ever did with your family. But there's another reason why they're going to keep working. We need them. There's this great mythology out there that there's this long line of young people just dying to get your job. Well, yeah, if you're a barista, that's probably the case. But if you're an aerospace engineer, that's not the case. If you're a financial advisor, you're probably 56 or 57 years old. And believe it or not, even though I find them creepy, there is a national clown shortage. By the way, if you look at the data, there's a clown shortage because apparently, ready for this? Not many people want to go into the career, I get that, but they said it's due to higher standards in the profession. Go figure that one out. But the fact of the matter is we are seeing just when we need the most, doctors average age 53, nurses 50 and the like, we are going to find many more companies out there bringing people back in the workplace as much. And in fact, Uber is now finding that they are recruiting older drivers to be their drivers. Higher quality, more careful, and by the way, next time you're in an Uber or any black car service, talk to the guy up front. Retired CEO, executive vice presidents, I feel like I should be driving them around half the time. But there are many people who need to retire because your body simply gives out. In fact, I would make the argument, and to use a phrase from Europe, and it's often popular in Europe, we need to rewrite the social contract around what the meaning of work is. For those of us who make our money off of running our mouth and driving a keyboard, carpal tunnel syndrome is not a reason to retire. But if you're lifting bricks and building houses, your body by age 50 or 55 is probably a retirement issue. So what's happening? Robotics and cobotics. We are now seeing a whole new generation of technology out there to enable people to stay on the construction site if they want to build cars in BMW, Ford plants and the like, where robotics now are becoming synonymous or something that you wear to enable you to be able to work longer for as long as possible. By the way, BMW, for instance, prefers to hire folks over 55. They must retire by 60 under German law. Why do they want a 55 and a 60-year-old? Because if you buy a 3 Series, or what was once a 3 Series, guess what? That's being built by the folks that are 20 and 30 years old. You buy the 6 and 7 Series, that's the older worker because they know what a BMW and they know what a craft is. The higher the worker, typically, the higher the quality. And when we talk about robotics, we also have to talk about is starting to change things overall. You know, we've had a national truck driver shortage in the United States for the last 40 years. Hard to believe with all the job openings out there, no one has picked this up, but we're now starting to find that robots and autonomous vehicles are not just coming to your car, but they're going to be driving buses and trucks far faster than they're driving your vehicle itself. Let's talk about something else, and this is something that not many people talk about when they talk about aging. The context of aging, whether it's work and family and fun, has fundamentally changed. What's the #1 tool to care for an aging society? Secretary Bonner knows this well. Daughter, the oldest adult daughter. If you're a woman between 47 and 57, I'll bet you the following, that if your partner does not have an oldest sister, that you probably have far more parents than you had ever planned on having children. So as a result, we always relied on family. Here's the different concept that we've got to think about for the next generation of older adults. We stopped having kids. Imagine this. 1 in 5 American women today are child-free compared to 1 in 10 in the 1970s. And this is not just about the United States, this is worldwide. In fact, geek speak, you need 2.1 kids per mom just to keep a population even. The baby boomers, giving the parents of the baby boomers, 3.9 boomers, 2.1 roughly. Gen X still kind of work in progress in many cases, 1.7, 1.8, and the millennials still very much a work in progress, the young kids. Their answers so far with fertility is, any guesses? No. Just no. And as a result, that fertility rate is dropping so much that I want you to look at this little advertisement. This is from Denmark. Now, I wish I could get this kind of research money. Jim, this is the kind of research we need to do. The Danes actually contracted out to find out that Danes have more sex outside of Denmark than they do at home. So you ready for this? They did an advertising campaign for wannabe grandparents to, ready for this? Do it for Denmark. And as long as no one is watching, you might want to go on YouTube to pull up this commercial, but it is a 2-minute commercial, and it's probably one of those things you don't want to admit that you've been watching. But I want you to think about the following. Even the Public Health Department of Singapore is giving little videos on how to have sex in cars. Please, but do it safely. But not for that reason. Germany, South Korea, Japan are all providing incentives from daycare, health improvement, insurance, work on the job. And so far the answer is nah. In fact, even China, did you ever think in your lifetime China would be issuing a workforce shortage, a talent shortage? Because they relieved the one-child, one-family policy about 3 years ago. And so far their answer is, nah, not so much. So the context of aging is fundamentally different. You have to start asking yourself, how do you contract out the oldest adult daughter? What is that technology? What is that business model? What is the public policy that undergirds the changing nature of the family in the context of how we age? Here's a number I want you to think about, 2047. How many of you remember when we were in school, the books and the classes about the population bomb, the population explosion? Remember that we were having Malthusian nightmares that we were going to run out of food, space, and air? Well, if you look at even UN's numbers, guess what? Population's going up, going up, going up. 2060 goes down this way. 2047, however, is the following year, where there will be more people on the planet over age 60 than there will be children 0 to 15. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the new longevity economy. It is the new nature of society. And we have never seen fertility drop at this level outside of famine, disease, or war. This is by choice, and it appears that despite advertising and incentives, people are not turning the other way. But the other part of this new context is how we're living. So we're living with fewer family around us, but I want you to look at this. This is the number of solo households, regardless of age, in various metropolitan areas. Now, I highlighted Boston, 38% of us living by ourselves in the Boston metro area. By the way, I want you to also note Washington, D.C. No one wants to live with anyone in Washington, D.C., apparently. But the fact of the matter is what we are looking at now is the fastest growing household in America is not your kid living in your basement playing video games, but actually households of one and living solo. And if you are living solo, there could be a variety of reasons. So guys, I told you it would go downhill from you. The bar is still open. You might want to take advantage of this. The highest divorce rate in the United States and Europe is amongst the 50 plus. It's called gray divorce. In fact, since 1970, it's gone up 700%, according to Bank of America. Now, 90% of those divorces are initiated by, boy, that was fast. My wife is here of 31 years, and she answered quickly, by women. So I was hoping maybe it would be about money. It would have been an interesting quant jock type chart. No. I was hoping maybe it would be sexual. That would have been very interesting in the evening. Any guesses? Women, you want to tell him? He bores me. Think about the following. If she's really willing to drop kick his brand after 30 or 40 years, what does that mean for any business who comes up to you and says, we've been here for 100 years? Well, basically, she's saying time's up as well. But downsizing, divorce, disability, sadly, death is also putting a trajectory of many people living by themselves, but fundamentally, living solo is a female issue. Men don't survive very long by themselves. They try to quickly remarry. Women, on the other hand, do tend to stay alone, but we also have many new demands out there. And by the way, there is an issue of isolation and loneliness. It is huge, but being alone is not necessarily being lonely. What it does mean is, who's going to change your light bulbs? Who's going to provide the services to your house? Do any of you have a face in mind that you would allow to knock on your 85-year-old mother's door living by herself? These are the new services, the new technologies, the new demands we are going to need for an aging society that go well beyond public policy alone. Let's talk about community. The T is doing great innovations. You know, transportation is how I got into aging in the first place. The fact of the matter is we tend to forget little things like getting there. Transportation is the very glue that allows you to hold all those big and little things we call life together. So we got to rethink. This is two of my students wearing Agnes, the Age Gain Now Empathy System that allows you to feel, shall we say, the joys of 80 years old, diabetes, and arthritis on how to be able to use the T or to navigate livable communities and the like. Or the autonomous vehicle may actually be the answer in between. By the way, where are we living? Any guesses as we age? I know we're standing here at the cusp of the seaport, and all of us are going, everyone's moving to the city. No, they're not. It makes great newspaper stories, but real estate-wise, they're not. If you look at where people are living, guess what? They are living where they always did. They're not moving to Florida. They're not moving to Arizona. That was a very small percentage to begin with. They are aging in place. 70% of the 50 plus live in suburbs and rural areas. If you look at the Commonwealth, where the high concentrations of older adults are, they are living in most cases where the services either are not or do not serve very well. And where do we want to age? If we do move, we've stopped moving to beaches. We've stopped playing golf. What's the number one area where people seem to be going? Not big cities, but small cities. But what type? Any guesses? They're moving to the Providences. They're moving to the Ann Arbors, the Chapel Hills. Smaller cities, college towns. Why? Every September you get a refresher of, shall we say, interesting people parading through town. 2, you've got a Starbucks in every corner, but there's sports, and guess what? Most major universities have a really good medical program as well. People are creating their own naturally occurring retirement communities, if you will, in places that we once looked at as fun when we were in our youth. But there's something else going on. It's a little bit of a chuckle, but also I think a little indicator out there. Jimmy Buffett, say what you want about his, shall we say, lifestyle, just dropped $1.7 billion in equity money to develop retirement living. The future of senior housing is no longer going to be simply on, I'm going to take care of you. It is no longer simply going to be on wellness. It is no longer going to be simply on, we're going to keep you engaged. The future of senior housing is very much likely to be around affinity. I want you to imagine not just Margaritaville, by the way, this is the first of 3 to be developed in Florida, but I want you to start thinking about, is the Audubon Society going to have like-minded people want to live together? Will college communities be based upon alums of that group? There is even senior housing developing in Scotland around former pharmaceutical executives as well. We're starting to see real change, real innovation. And by the way, when we think about the community, it's also about redesigning our spaces and places where we are. These are my students wearing the Agnes suit I told you about, redesigning CVS. Next time you're in CVS in one of the newer stores, I want you to notice how the aisles are wider, the shelves are lower, the signs are easier to read. And by the way, as we change our public spaces, as we change our private spaces for older adults, it not only makes it easier for them, but no one at any age complains about something that's too easy to use, too safe, and too accessible. Let's get to the house and the future of the home and technology. This is going to be somewhere between cool and creepy, I'll warn you up front. First off is that your house is getting much, much smarter. Samsung, for instance, has now started developing the F economy. That is the refrigerator economy, where essentially your refrigerator is talking to your toaster is talking to your oven, and it's reporting out what you could make with the ingredients in your refrigerator. Is it fresh? And perhaps do you need new delivery of new food? Imagine this. Most of you probably have a cell phone. Most of you probably have a second type cell phone, or you've got some sort of wearable on your wrist. In the next 5 years, it is projected that each of us will have 5 IP, that is internet addresses, on our body. And your house is going to be watching you as you watch it. Imagine not the help I phone can't get up technology. That's yesterday's news. What we want now is proactive well-being. This is a mirror that you can now look into as you're fixing your makeup, or I spend a lot less time doing my hair these days. Look as you're brushing your hair, and it will check for capillary changes, dilation in your eyes, changes in your skin tone, to say, gee, Joe, you know, growing up outside of Philadelphia on a diet of scrapple, tasty cakes, and cheesesteaks, it might be time maybe to get into the doctor's office at some point. But the idea is that you will have that checkup on a daily basis. That is going to become the new normal. How many of you have been to Japan? How many of you used, I know you just had dinner, so I'll keep it clean. How many of you have used a smart toilet in Japan? Okay, now I don't mean those that do the warm, squishy things to you. I'll put this in computer science vernacular so not to offend anyone. I'm talking about those smart toilets that, shall we say, from Toto and from Panasonic, already on the market, that, shall we say, download from the user your body weight, your glucose. Are you sticking with your diet out there? And then upload that information to your nutritionist, your doctor, Tokyo Medical Center, or talk to Publix Supermarket, who not only now has nutritionists in the store, but they're trying to think about telenutrition as a service to augment their adjacent markets in food and the like. So by the way, speaking of supermarkets, the Brits have now entered the toilet wars. One of the largest grocery stores in the UK is now working with a toilet manufacturer to create the VIP toilet. You see, this one downloads and uploads, but it also facilitates home delivery of the foods your toilet thinks is missing from your diet. Let me conclude with what I hope to be a call to action. I think that Jim and the Pioneer team, the governor, Secretary Bonner, and others who have put together the Governor's Council on Aging are doing more in the Commonwealth than almost anywhere else I have seen in the United States, period. So, aging has been discussed and described by countless politicians and business people as there are more older adults, so we need to do more of the same. We need to think differently if we want to live differently, live longer and better lives. So I read a number of strange things. I have, as you can probably tell, my ADD gets ahead of me. I read a book some time ago about cathedral building in medieval Europe. And you're probably saying, what the heck does that have to do with this? But if you think about cathedral building in Europe, why did they do that? They were big, big structures for very small populations. And really, if you look at why they were building those cathedrals, the mathematicians were wishing to push what they knew in math. The budding engineers and architects wanted to, yes, rise to the money that was available and to the call of whatever the religion was, to build the great church, to build a vision, to see how far they could push their abilities. Ladies and gentlemen, I am asking, in fact, I am demanding from this august group and the start that we've got from the governor and from the Pioneer Institute to build a cathedral of longevity about not just what we can do to muddle through, not just what we can do to help those who need help, but to redefine 100 years of quality living. And how do we do that? First, innovation. I believe that we have the opportunity, not just because we asked the question, I think Massachusetts is at a unique point in history. Have you ever thought about how many organizations, public, private, and NGOs in this state are contributing to global discussions on aging? On the private side, we have GE, a couple hundred feet over here, that owns a good chunk of the health and technology business. We have UMass Boston, Brandeis, some of the greatest gerontology thinkers in the country here. We have Philips Healthcare here. We have a governor that is interested in putting it on the agenda. We generally could argue that the retirement planning industry is headquartered here. Innovation is about coming up with that new vision, and then also, and the next part is forming partnerships. This is too big for government. This is too big for business. We need public-private partnerships to think creatively about what that new vision is going to be and how to get it out there. And finally, this is the longevity economy. I'd love to tell you that this is purely altruistic, that I want all of us in the Commonwealth to live longer and better. Absolutely. With a population aging as it is worldwide in every single country, with a population with new demands and new income, this is the new export for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This is business, it's good policy, and a new way to ensure that we and our children and grandchildren live longer and better. Thank you so much for having me.